Millionaire CEO finds twins. Crying at his wife's grave and turns pale upon hearing some words. Before we dive into this story, let me ask you something. Have you ever looked back at a choice and wondered if it cost you everything that truly mattered? Stay with me. This isn't just about one man. It's about regret, second chances, and a kind of love that money can't buy. Dear friend, what you're about to experience is not just a story. It's a deeply human journey about loss, resilience, and the quiet, unexpected ways love finds us when we need it most. If this is your first time here, I invite you to drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing your voice. And if you're someone who believes in second chances and the hidden strength of ordinary people, and in stories that stay with you long after they end, consider subscribing and tapping the bell icon. We share moments that matter. Thank you for being part of this one. Now let's begin. It was a cold morning in late October, the kind of day where the wind cuts through even the finest wool coat. Willow Grove Cemetery, perched on a hill outside Denver, lay quiet under a thin shroud of fog. Rows of weathered headstones stretched into the mist. Among them stood a man who usually commanded boardrooms, not burial grounds, Evan Lancaster. He was dressed in a tailored black overcoat, his salt and pepper hair slicked back as always. But today, no amount of polish could hide the weight in his chest. His late wife's name, Marisa Caldwell, was etched in stark white marble before him. Just 2 weeks had passed since her funeral, yet, standing here, it felt as though time had frozen. Evan's fingers trembled as he traced her name. His voice barely broke a whisper. "I'm sorry, Marisa, for everything." He had built a billion-dollar empire, but had failed to hold on to the one person who had loved him before the success before the headlines. They had married young, madly in love, but as years passed, so did anniversaries missed in pursuit of profits. Marisa had left 5 years ago with nothing more than a letter that said, "I loved you, Evan, but I couldn't come second to your empire anymore." He never fought to bring her back, not because he didn't love her, but because he believed he had already lost her. And now, he had. As Evan stood lost in memory, the air shifted. A muffled sob broke the silence. His gaze snapped toward the sound. A few rows away, by a freshly laid bouquet of lilies, were 2 small boys, no older than 7 or 8. They wore faded jackets too thin for the biting wind. Their tiny shoulders shook as they clung to each other, whispering to the gravestone between quiet sobs. Evan's breath caught. Something about them. The dark eyes, the sharp cheekbones. Familiar. Too familiar. Then one of the boys, the taller one, knelt and placed a single white daisy at the headstone. His voice, fragile and trembling, reached Evan's ears. "Mom, we miss you." The words hit Evan like a sledgehammer. "Mom." His pulse thundered. He took a hesitant step forward, crunching gravel beneath his polished shoes. As he drew closer, details sharpened. The boys, Caleb and Liam Powell, as he would soon learn, bore features that mirrored his own reflection. A terrifying thought gripped him. No, it's not possible. Evan's knees weakened. For years he had assumed Marisa had moved on. Now 2 small pieces of truth stood before him, shattering everything he thought he knew. He struggled to find his voice. I knew your mother," he finally managed. The younger boy wiped his nose and peered up at him. Are you Mom's friend?" Evan swallowed hard. How could he explain that he loved her? That he had no idea they even existed? That if he had known nothing would have kept him away? Before he could answer, an older woman hurried toward them. Helen Powell, the boy's grandmother. Her eyes, sharp with recognition and warning, locked onto Evan. "You need to leave," she said firmly, wrapping the boys protectively. Evan's voice cracked. "Please, Just tell me. Are they—" Helen's expression wavered for a brief moment. Pain, guilt, and guarded resolve flickered in her eyes. Then she turned, leading the boys away. As Evan stood frozen beneath the gray sky, he felt a grief deeper than any he had known. Not just for Marisa, but for the years lost with the children he never knew were his. That night, back in his glass-walled penthouse overlooking downtown Denver, Evan stared at the skyline. The city he had conquered felt meaningless. He thought of two small hands clutching daisies of whispered words meant for a mother who would never answer again. And one question burned through his mind. How could she have kept this from me? Sometimes life hands you a second chance. Sometimes it doesn't. But one thing was certain: he wasn't about to lose them again. Before we move forward, consider this. Success without presence is the loneliest victory. Next, you'll see just how far Evan will go to reclaim the family he never knew he had. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when the truth comes out. The morning after that haunting encounter at Willow Grove Cemetery, Evan Lancaster awoke to a gnawing emptiness. The boys' faces, Caleb's wary gaze, Liam's trembling voice, looped endlessly in his mind. No board meeting or merger negotiation had ever left him this shaken. Yet now, for the first time in years, the business empire he had sacrificed everything to build felt cold and hollow. As sunlight broke through Denver's glass towers, Evan paced his penthouse, consumed by a single truth. If those boys were truly his, he had already missed a lifetime of moments. He needed answers, and there was only one person who could give them. Hours later, he stood on the porch of a modest craftsman home in Park Hill. The neatly trimmed hedges and faded yellow siding seemed worlds away from his penthouse. But this was where Helen Powell lived, and where his unspoken questions awaited. The door opened a crack. Helen's wary eyes met his. "Mrs. Powell." Evan began, his voice tight. "Please, I'm not here to cause trouble. I need to understand." Helen studied him for a long moment. Then, with a resigned breath, she stepped aside. "You'd better come in." Inside, the house was warm and lived in. Toys were scattered in a corner. Faded photos of Marisa and the boys adorned the mantel. Evan's throat tightened at the sight of his late wife, her smile frozen in time. They sat across from each other in the small kitchen. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Helen broke the silence. "You didn't know about them, did you?" she asked quietly. "No," Evan whispered. "God, no." Helen's gaze softened, but her voice held a sharp edge. "Marisa never wanted it this way. But she was scared. She loved you, Evan. Too much, maybe. But after she left, she didn't think you'd want to be part of their lives." Evan's heart twisted. He saw now what Marisa must have carried: hope tangled with heartbreak, pride mingled with fear. "I would have come," he said hoarsely. "I would have." Helen shook her head gently. "Would you? You were married to your work, Evan." "Marisa watched you disappear one late night at the office at a time. When she found out she was pregnant, she was already halfway out the door." Tears burned Evan's eyes. He had told himself for years that he'd done the right thing letting her go. Now that lie unraveled painfully. Helen continued, her voice trembling. "She wrote you letters. So many times she wanted to tell you. But every time she saw another article about your next acquisition or your latest award, she convinced herself you didn't need this burden." Evan's chest ached. 1,000 moments flashed before him. Stock photos, Forbes covers, gala speeches, all while his sons grew up without him. "But why now?" he asked, voice cracking. "Why am I finding this out here like this?" Helen's shoulders sagged. "Marisa never stopped loving you, but she was proud, stubborn, and when she got sick, She couldn't bring herself to reopen old wounds. She made me promise to protect the boys, to give them stability. The words hung heavy between them. Evan swallowed hard. And what about now? They're my sons. I can't just walk away. Helen's eyes filled with tears. I know, but they've just lost their mother. Liam's too young to understand, and Caleb, he's carrying more hurt than you can imagine. They don't need another upheaval. Evan leaned forward, desperation raw in his voice. Then let me be there, please, even if they don't know who I am yet. Let me earn their trust. Let me be a part of their lives. Helen studied him, searching for sincerity. Finally, she sighed. I'll think about it, for their sake. But understand this, Evan, this isn't about what you want. It's about what they need. Tears welled in Evan's eyes. I understand. A long pause followed. Then, in a softer voice, Helen added, There's something else. Marisa left a letter. For you. I haven't had the heart to give it to you until now. She rose and retrieved a small envelope from a drawer. Her hands trembled as she passed it across the table. Evan stared at it, afraid to touch it, as if it might shatter the fragile hope he now clung to. Finally, he opened it. Marissa's familiar handwriting danced across the page. Evan, if you are reading this, it means you've found them. I knew you would one day. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was scared not of you but of losing what little peace I had left. Please forgive me. And please love them fiercely. You were always capable of more than you believed. For them, be the man I once saw in you. All my love, always, Marisa. The words blurred through tears Evan could no longer hold back. He bowed his head, shoulders shaking. For the first time in years, the armor of ambition and pride cracked. Across the table, Helen wiped her eyes. She never stopped believing in you. When Evan finally looked up, his voice was steady, though his heart still trembled. Neither will I. I won't let them down. Helen nodded slowly. Then prove it. Later that night, back in his penthouse, Evan sat alone beneath the city's glittering skyline. The letter lay beside him, a sacred tether to the woman he had lost and the children he had just found. A quiet truth settled in his heart. Success built on sacrifice wasn't worth the emptiness it left behind. No deal or dollar could reclaim the lost years, but he still had a choice now, a chance to rewrite what remained. And that was a gift he would not squander. A few days after reading Marisa's letter, Evan Lancaster found himself standing in City Park, heart pounding beneath his crisp navy sweater. Gone were the tailored suits, the air of untouchable confidence. Today, he was just a man, a father trying to bridge 5 lost years with 2 boys who didn't yet know who he was. Helen had agreed cautiously to let him meet them. As a friend, she'd insisted. They're not ready for more. Evan had nodded. He would take whatever window he was given. The park buzzed with life. Families picnicked under sprawling oaks. Children chased geese across manicured lawns. Evan stood near the edge of the playground, eyes scanning for familiar faces. Then he saw them. Caleb and Liam were racing across the grass soccer ball, tumbling ahead of them. Helen followed behind her gaze, flickering toward Evan. When their eyes met, she offered a small, wary nod. For a moment, Evan just watched. The way Caleb's dark eyes narrowed in concentration, the tilt of Liam's head when he laughed. Pieces of himself, of Marisa, woven into every movement. His throat tightened. Taking a steadying breath, he approached. The boys were now kicking the ball near a small wooden bench. Helen caught his arm gently. Remember? Take it slow. Evan nodded. I will. As he neared the ball, rolled toward him. On instinct, he trapped it with his foot and gently passed it back. Nice kick, Liam called out, grinning. His easy warmth reminded Evan of Marissa's laughter. "Mind if I join you guys for a bit?" Evan asked, voice careful. Caleb's gaze sharpened suspicion flickering in his eyes, but Liam piped up, "Sure, we're just practicing." For the next 15 minutes, Evan played along, letting them dribble circles around him, laughing, when Liam stole the ball, offering quiet praise when Caleb scored an impressive goal. With each moment, a fragile thread began to weave between them. After a while, they collapsed onto the grass, flushed and breathless. Helen approached with bottled water. "Break time," she announced, handing them each a drink. Liam turned to Evan. "You're pretty good. Do you play soccer?" Evan smiled. "I used to. Not as fast as you two, though." Caleb watched silently, fingers picking at the grass. Evan sensed the distance, the guarded tension behind his eyes. Seeking a gentle way in, he asked, "What else do you guys like to do?" Liam launched into an animated list: dinosaurs, space exploration video games, his enthusiasm uncontainable. Caleb remained quiet, gaze flickering between Evan and the horizon. When Liam ran off to chase a passing butterfly, Evan seized the moment. He turned softly to Caleb. "You're really good with that ball. I can tell you practice a lot." Caleb shrugged, eyes downcast. "Mom taught us. She loved coming here." The words hit Evan like a wave. Of course. This park had been a sanctuary for them, a place Marissa had chosen for comfort, not for Evan to intrude upon. "I miss her too," Evan said quietly, voice thick with emotion. Caleb's eyes snapped up, raw hurt flashing across his face. "You didn't even come to her funeral," he spat. Evan's breath caught. He hadn't expected the confrontation so soon, but Caleb deserved honesty. "I was there," he whispered. "I was too ashamed to stand beside her family. I thought I had no right, but I loved your mom very much." Caleb's lip trembled. "Then why weren't you here? Why didn't you know about us?" Tears burned behind Evan's eyes. "Because I failed her, Caleb. I failed all of you. But if I had known, I swear to you I would have been here every day." Caleb turned away, shoulders tense, but he didn't run. A small miracle. Helen watched from a distance, her gaze unreadable. When Liam bounded back, oblivious to the tension, Evan smiled through the ache in his chest. "Hey, Liam," he said, voice steady. "How would you like to visit my office sometime? I work in a tall building downtown. You can see the whole city from the top." Liam's eyes widened. "Really? That sounds so cool." Caleb remained silent, but a flicker of curiosity passed through his guarded expression. As they packed up to leave, Evan thanked Helen softly. "Thank you for this." She nodded. "You're making progress, but Caleb, he's holding more than you know. Be patient." Evan swallowed the lump in his throat. "I will." Over the next few weeks, Evan made every effort to be present. Soccer games, park visits, ice cream outings. He even helped Liam build a model rocket, guiding him with hands that once closed multi-million-dollar deals, but now fumbled with glue and plastic parts. With Liam, the bond grew quickly. The boy craved connection, clung to Evan's stories, beamed when Evan cheered from the sidelines. Caleb remained a different story. Though he no longer glared or turned away, his trust came in fragments. A nod of acknowledgement here, a hesitant question there. Evan treasured each sliver of progress. One chilly afternoon after a school event, Evan offered to walk the boys home. As they passed a mural on a brick wall vibrant with scenes of the night sky, Caleb paused. "Mom loved stars," he said quietly. "She used to take us out at night just to watch them," she said. "The stars never left even when the sky was dark." Evan's heart clenched. She was right, and I won't leave either, Caleb, I promise. For a long moment, Caleb said nothing. Then, barely audible, he whispered, "You can't break that promise, I won't." Evan vowed, voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. That night, alone in his penthouse, Evan reflected on how fragile trust could be, like trying to mend a shattered vase piece by trembling piece. He thought of all the moments he had missed. The birthdays, the bedtime stories, the simple comfort of being there. He knew now presence mattered more than any fortune he could amass. A small voice echoed in his mind Maurice's words from the letter, "Be the man I once saw in you." He would, he had to. And in that quiet resolve a new truth crystallized. Love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect words. It was about showing up. Every day, no matter how late, no matter how long it took. Tomorrow would bring another step forward, another fragile thread to weave into a bond unbroken. And Evan was ready to take it. Winter had begun to creep into Denver, bringing shorter days and sharp winds that seemed to slice through the city's steel and glass. Evan Lancaster had embraced the change. Each icy breath served as a reminder that life, like the seasons, could be unforgiving, but it also offered renewal. Over the past several weeks, he had done everything in his power to rebuild trust with his sons. Liam greeted him with wide smiles and endless chatter now. Caleb, more cautious, had started walking beside him rather than behind, his silence occasionally broken with curious questions. Each step forward was fragile, but it mattered. One late Friday afternoon, as the school bell rang, Evan waited at the usual pickup spot. Helen had an appointment, so Evan volunteered to collect the boys himself. The courtyard buzzed with energy as children spilled out in waves, reuniting with waiting parents. Liam sprinted toward him, beaming. "Dad, we made volcanoes in science today," Liam announced breathlessly, throwing his arms around Evan's waist. The word "Dad" still took Evan's breath away every time, like a secret he had never dared to hope would be spoken. But when Evan glanced around, Caleb was nowhere in sight. "Where's your brother?" he asked gently. Liam's bright expression faltered. He looked down, shifting nervously. He got really mad at lunch. Some kids were making fun of us. They said you were just a rich guy trying to look good." His voice cracked. "Caleb told them to stop, but then he got mad at me too. He said I shouldn't pretend everything's perfect now." Liam's lower lip trembled. "I didn't mean to make him mad." Alarm sliced through Evan. His gaze swept the courtyard again. "Okay, buddy, stay close to me." He knelt to Liam's eye level. Did he say where he was going? Liam hesitated, then whispered, "He goes to the river walk when he's upset. Mom used to take us there." Evan's heart seized. The Cherry Creek River Walk, a beautiful stretch along the water, but dangerous in winter, especially at dusk. A storm front was moving in. Without wasting another second, he scooped Liam into the car, calling Helen as he drove. Her voice shook with worry. "I'll check the parks near home." "Be careful, Evan." Traffic crawled through the city, each red light an agonizing eternity. Evan's hands gripped the wheel until his knuckles blanched. He kept replaying Liam's words. Caleb's anger. The look in his son's eyes the last time they spoke. He had known Caleb was struggling, but he hadn't known how deeply the wound still ran. By the time he reached the river walk, the sky had dimmed to slate gray. The river roared louder than usual, swollen from recent rains. Streetlights flickered on, casting long, lonely shadows. "Stay in the car," Evan told Liam softly. "I'll find him." He ran along the winding path, heart-thundering, scanning benches, alcoves, the narrow bridges arching over the turbulent water. And then there, a small figure hunched on a bench near the farthest stretch, backpack clutched to his chest. Caleb, Evan called, breathless. Caleb flinched, but didn't look up. Evan slowed his approach, voice gentle. "It's okay, I'm here." The boy's shoulders shook. "Go away," he choked out. "You don't understand." Evan sank to one knee beside him. "Help me understand," he whispered. Caleb finally looked up, tears streaking his face. "They're right," he sobbed. "You weren't there when it mattered. Now you just show up and it's like none of it happened. But it did. I had to watch Mom get sick. I had to be strong for Liam, and you had your buildings and your money." Evan's heart shattered. No business loss, no failed deal could match the raw pain in his son's voice. "You're right," he said softly. "I wasn't there. I can't change that. But I'm here now, Caleb. I'm not leaving." Caleb shook his head violently. "You will. Everyone does." A gust of wind caught the boy off guard. His backpack slipped from his grasp, tumbling toward the river's edge. Without thinking, Caleb darted after it. "Caleb!" Evan shouted. But Caleb's foot caught on the slick stones, and in an instant he was sliding toward the churning water. Evan sprinted forward, adrenaline burning through him. The river was icy and fast, unforgiving. As Caleb's small frame teetered on the edge, Evan dove. His arms caught his son just as the boy's foot slipped. Together they tumbled onto the bank, Evan shielding Caleb with his body as cold spray soaked them both. For a moment, neither moved. Evan's breath came in ragged gasps. Caleb sobbed against his chest. "I've got you," Evan whispered fiercely. "I've got you." The boy clung to him, shaking. "I'm scared," he admitted in a tiny voice. "I thought you wouldn't come." Tears streamed down Evan's face. "I will always come, no matter what." They stayed like that, father and son, entwined beneath the storm-gray sky until the panic ebbed into weary calm. Later, back at Helen's home, Evan sat by the fireplace with Caleb wrapped in blankets. Helen handed him a mug of cocoa, her eyes glistening. "You saved him," she said softly. "I failed him first," Evan replied, "but I won't fail him again." Helen hesitated, then retrieved a small wooden box. "There's something Marisa wanted you to have when the time was right." Inside lay a letter, folded neatly in Marisa's graceful handwriting. Evan opened it, hands trembling. "Evan, if you're reading this, it means you found them. I always believed you would, even when I was afraid. I didn't tell you because I thought I was protecting them. Maybe I was wrong. Please love them. Show them they're worth more than any empire. You were always capable of more than you saw in yourself. And I never stopped loving you. Marisa." Tears streamed freely down Evan's face. He pressed the letter to his heart, the weight of lost years crashing over him. Caleb watched, eyes wide. She believed in you." Evan nodded. "And now I believe in you." The boy hesitated, then leaned against him. "Don't go," he whispered. "Never," Evan vowed. That night, as snow began to fall softly outside, Evan knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. But redemption wasn't about perfection. It was about presence, about fighting for love every single day. And that was a fight he would never walk away from. 6 months had passed since that freezing night at Cherry Creek Riverwalk, the night Evan Lancaster had pulled his son back from the edge, both literally and figuratively. In the days that followed, something had shifted not just in Caleb, but in all of them. Walls built from years of absence and silence had begun to crumble brick by hesitant brick. Evan didn't squander the fragile trust he'd earned. He restructured his life with unwavering determination. The towering deals and bottom-line reports that once consumed him were now carefully balanced around soccer practices, school plays, and quiet dinners at home. His team at Lancaster Holdings was surprised when their CEO began leaving early on Fridays or declining weekend conferences. But Evan had made a choice. He was no longer building an empire at the expense of a family. The boys spent weekdays at Evan's downtown apartment, a space once sterile and gleaming, now softened with signs of life. Liam's science projects sprawled across the coffee table. Caleb's sketches pinned to the fridge. Weekends were for Helen's house in Park Hill, where the rhythm of their old life helped ground them in this new chapter. Small moments held the greatest weight. Evan treasured Saturday mornings making pancakes with the boys, even when more batter ended up on Liam's face than in the pan. He loved the quiet rituals helping Caleb with math homework, reading Liam's favorite space books before bed, sharing memories of Marisa that stitched the past and present together. One crisp April afternoon, Evan invited the boys to visit his office for the first time. The 43rd floor of Lancaster Holdings offered a sweeping view of Denver's skyline. Liam was wide-eyed, running from window to window, marveling at the city below. Caleb, more reserved, stood beside his father near the glass. "She would have liked this," Caleb said quietly. "Mom loved the city." Evan smiled, placing a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. "She loved you more than anything, and I think she'd be proud of you. Of both of you." In the weeks that followed, milestones unfolded one by one. At Liam's spring soccer tournament, Evan shouted himself hoarse cheering from the sidelines. When Caleb's art was selected for a local gallery exhibit, Evan stood beaming beside him, tears prickling his eyes as he watched his son glow with pride. Yet it was the ordinary moments, the late-night talks, the gentle hand on a shoulder, after a tough day that built the deepest bonds. And though Caleb still carried scars, he had begun to let Evan in one moment at a time. As Memorial Day approached, Helen invited Evan and the boys to join her for a visit to Willow Grove Cemetery. It would be 6 months to the day since Marisa's passing. The idea weighed heavily on all of them, but they knew it was time. That morning, the sky was bright and cloudless. The cemetery, once cold and foreign to Evan, now felt like sacred ground, a place where love and loss intertwined. Together they walked to Marisa's grave. Evan carried a small bouquet of lilies, her favorite. The boys each held a single white daisy. Liam went first, placing his flower at the headstone. "Hi, Mom," he whispered. "I miss you. Dad says we can visit the planetarium soon like you used to take us." Evan's heart swelled with both joy and ache. Caleb stepped forward next. He stood in silence for a long moment, fingers brushing the smooth marble. Then, voice steady, he spoke. "Mom, Dad's here now. And we're okay. We still miss you a lot. But we're gonna be okay." Evan's breath caught. He placed his lilies gently beside theirs. "Thank you, Marisa," he whispered. "For them. For everything." As they stood together in the soft morning light, Evan felt an overwhelming gratitude, a sense of completion he had once believed impossible. They lingered for a while longer, then began walking back toward the car. The boys ran ahead, their laughter echoing through the sun-dappled path. Caleb slowed, falling into step beside his father. He looked up, expression thoughtful. "Dad, I'm glad you found us," he said quietly. Evan's voice caught emotion thick in his throat. "So am I, son, more than you'll ever know." In that moment, Evan understood a truth that would guide him the rest of his life. Redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building the present with open hands and an open heart. As the city skyline came into view, he smiled. The circles of his life, once fragmented and lonely, had finally come together, forged by love, stitched with patience, and strengthened by every tear, every laugh, every step taken toward one another. And this time, he wasn't walking alone. Evan Lancaster's journey began on a cold October morning, standing alone at Willow Grove Cemetery, before the gravestone of the woman he had once loved more than life itself, Marisa Caldwell. That morning was supposed to be a quiet moment of mourning, a chance to finally say the words he had buried beneath years of ambition and regret. Instead, it became the day his entire world shifted. The sight of two small boys, Caleb and Liam, calling out to their mother shattered every illusion he had held about the life he thought he understood. They were his sons, and he had missed everything. For years, Evan had poured himself into building a billion-dollar empire, believing that success would fill the emptiness left by Maurice's departure. But no amount of wealth could replace what he lost: the irreplaceable moments of watching his children grow, the quiet joys of family that cannot be bought or bargained for. At first, learning the truth broke him, but in that brokenness, Evan found the seed of redemption. The road back was neither smooth nor simple. Helen Powell, Maurice's mother, served as both gatekeeper and reluctant ally, revealing the painful reasons why Marissa had kept the boys from him. Fear, pride, love twisted by uncertainty. Evan faced Caleb's deep-rooted anger and distrust, a boy forced to grow up too soon in the shadow of his mother's illness and his father's absence. Liam, younger and more open-hearted, embraced Evan's efforts more quickly, but it was Caleb's guarded heart that truly tested Evan's resolve. Step by step, through patience and presence, Evan began to rebuild a fragile bond with his sons. Soccer games, school projects, late-night talks under the stars that Marissa had loved so much. Each moment was a stitch in the tapestry of a family that might never have been, but now could still become. Yet the greatest test came on a stormy night when Caleb, overwhelmed by grief and anger, ran to the Riverwalk, a place of both comfort and danger. In that harrowing moment, as Evan pulled his son from the icy brink, actions spoke louder than words. Redemption is not promised through promises alone, but proven in sacrifice, in showing up when it matters most. Marissa's letter discovered that same night served as a final bridge between past and present, a blessing and a plea for Evan to be the man she always believed he could be. He answered that plea, not with grand gestures, but with unwavering presence. He chose to be a father every day through small kindnesses, hard conversations, and the willingness to accept that rebuilding love takes time. The story of Evan, Caleb, and Liam is not one of perfect endings, but of imperfect people choosing to love one another anyway. At Willow Grove Cemetery, 6 months after their journey began, when Caleb finally said, "Dad's here now. We're okay," it wasn't just a line spoken into the quiet air. It was a testament to forgiveness, resilience, and the power of love to transform even the deepest wounds. And from this story, there are powerful lessons we can carry into our own lives. First, success without presence is hollow. In a world that often glorifies hustle and sacrifice, it's easy to believe that providing is the same as loving. But what children, friends, and loved ones need most is not the fruit of our labor, but the gift of our time, our attention, and our hearts. Second, forgiveness is a journey, not a moment. Caleb's path to accepting his father was marked by setbacks and doubts. Real healing takes patience and understanding, qualities we all must cultivate when seeking to mend broken relationships. Third, redemption is possible. No matter how deep the regret or how lost the years, choosing to show up today can begin to rewrite tomorrow. Evan couldn't reclaim the years he missed, but he chose to build a future with his sons, one moment at a time. So, how can we apply these lessons in our lives? Start by asking, who in your world needs your presence more than your performance? Are there wounds that need tending, conversations long overdue? Know that it is never too late to reach out, to listen, to show up. And when you do, lead with humility and consistency, not just words. If this story touched your heart, if you found a piece of your own journey reflected in Evan's, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Your support encourages us to bring you more stories that inspire reflection, hope, and healing. We look forward to sharing many more meaningful journeys with you. Thank you for being here with us today.